Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I could, just 1 second, I think that with the number of committee members here, we'll probably do another round if people want to stay.
Okay.
And I talked to the ranking member about that, so go ahead, Mr. Palmer.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time. We've had some discussion as we're just now about forest management. There was also the issue of managing forests, particularly old-growth forests, relative to the spotted owl and the Forest Service and the various federal agencies came up with this idea that it had to be all old growth. Turns out that wasn't the case. I mean, once they figured out that the spotted owl provide preferred cover in taller trees and not the extensive canopy cover of the smaller trees, they realized the biggest threat was the barred owl. I mean, they literally, Mr. Chairman, we're making a decision to hire people to go out and kill barred owls. So we've been all over the roadmap, if not the forest floor roadmap, on how to manage forest. And a lot of what has been discussed is wrong. In regard to, I'm a forest owner, by the way, private landowner, and I understand that the buildup of fuel on the forest floor is extremely dangerous. It's dangerous for your investment. It's dangerous to neighboring landowners, and it's certainly been catastrophically dangerous in a number of our western states with uncontrolled forest fires, and it's largely because of poor forest management and lack of access. And it creates a greater danger for those fighting forest, because once you get into an area that doesn't have access, you really do isolate firefighters and put them in grave danger at times. So my point is, Mr. Furness, you testified in a hearing almost a year ago, a year and 2 weeks ago tomorrow, or today actually, on resilient forest. And a bill that I thought was a very sensible approach to managing our federal forest. It allowed for management of the forest, much like I try to manage the forest land that I'm a part owner in. But you had this position that it was endangered the forest to allow to go in and remove trees that don't have a benefit for wildlife, particularly. There's some that do, but that somehow you concluded that it would disturb the forest. And what we've seen are hundreds of millions of acres that have been lost. I don't understand that. You go look at some of the state-managed forests, not all of them, but some of them, and it's a decided advantage. And again, looking at the privately managed forest. So I just wonder if what you're thinking is in regard to limiting access. And I'm understand not wanting to have four-wheelers racing all over forest land. I get that. You can manage that. I manage it on my property. But why would we not want to get in and make sure that we have healthy forest? Because what we're seeing right now is not working. Mr. Harvey?
No, sir, it's not. And I'd like to touch base on coordination, because that's a key aspect of it. Mm-hmm. It's not working on the ground. When I talked to the Forest Service supervisor in my area and the district ranger, I asked, do you even know what I'm talking about? And they said, no, we've never heard of it. So maybe in Washington, D.C., they talked about it, but they did not transfer that down to the ground level that I have to deal with on a daily basis. We as four-wheelers, horseback riders, what have you, we're in the forest. When we see a danger, we call it in immediately. We diminish the threat to our forest. We manage our forests on private land and state lands far greater than the Forest Service even remotely comes close to. So yeah, proper management can happen. It does happen, but not at that level. And they also say we don't have enough money. The problem with not having enough money, it's growing right in front of you. It's called trees.
That's exactly right. The only forester in Congress is Congressman Bruce Westerman, who's a dear friend of mine. And we have forest management as a common interest. And the thing about properly managing forest is that you get the fuel off the forest floor. You are able to manage it to protect it from severe drought situations by thinning. And you also protect it from insect infestation. We've got this issue in Alabama with the pine beetles where you literally have to go in and remove the infected trees and the trees in the adjacent area. That's how you preserve the forest. And Representative White, you mentioned, I don't know where you got the number, but you said 80% of the trees are dead. I've flown over some forests and looking down in the summertime at the canopy and see the dead trees and know that is going to eventually spread to other areas if you don't get in and cut those out. If I may allow the witness to comment, I yield back.
Thank you, Representative.